standardized on Atom and Atom Pub. Now, in this case, what we have is a collection of user requests. So when we want to create a user, we don't directly create a user. We actually post a request to create a user into our user's capability. We then have entries, user request 1, 2, 3. It's a single entry in the collection, and we standardized on a particular content type. In this case, it was Atom and JSON. So it's kind of an Atom representation in JSON. So, standard resource representations using well-known web standards, basically. We also, as I mentioned, reified the request to create a user. Now, this is a really interesting idea. Reification is an interesting idea. We don't create a user directly. We don't post a user into this capability, to an endpoint, right, to a URI. What we do instead is we post the request to create a user. This gives us some interesting characteristics, which I'll talk about in a sec. But that's my next tip. If you've got something that's important, if it's an important part of the design, actually make it explicit. Right? Make it explicit. Reify, I believe, comes from the Greek, and it's to convert an abstract thing into a concrete thing. Right? So we have this abstract idea of the request to create a user, which we turned into a concrete thing. We talked about, there was a talk earlier, it was mentioned about J2EE, I think, or JEE rather, and actually, distributed transactions and security and all sorts of stuff. Actually, they did a really good job in one respect, which is they reified the idea of transactions. They actually made transactions explicit in that framework. It's a similar idea. It's an important thing in your domain. Make it explicit. Make the request to create a user, in this case, explicit. So, we have this event queue. It's got a single responsibility at the top. This forms the transactional boundary of our system, effectively. The only way to get into this is to